How do master watercolor artists achieve all those wonderful textures in their watercolor paintings? I'm talking about textures for creating stone walls on architecture, or rocks and those wonderful cliff sides, or the grass and those tall wispy fields, or leaf textures of foliage, so you don't have to paint every individual leaf, or even creating those wonderful textured barks on trunks of trees, or stone walkways, or those wispy clouds, soft and fluffy looking, in the background of your landscape. Or how about those whiskers and feather textures, or fur and hair textures on portraits of animals and people? How do you get all those wonderful textures in watercolor painting? Do they use certain tools? Do they use certain techniques? Do they use just one brush to achieve it all? How do you get all of that? In today's video, I'm going to share with you my ultimate textured watercolor kit that I have made on my own from various supplies and objects that I use to create all these wonderful textures. Hello and welcome to Country Boardwalk Studios. I'm CB Mack, a multimedia artist who loves creating her own art supplies while plein air painting, urban sketching, or to use here in the studio. So, let's go check out my ultimate watercolor texture kit. Okay, boardwalkers, as you can see, I have my workspace filled with a lot of different items on my board here, on my work surface board. And I would like for you to look at the board and tell me in the comments below, what of these items do you think would be great for making textures in your watercolor painting? Do you think all of these items might help make textures for your watercolor paintings? Are there some items on here that you think there is no way in the world you can make any kind of texture with that material? Go ahead and post in the comments what you think. And I'm going to share with you how I use some or maybe all of these items in creating some textures. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of my paintings that I have used some of these items with, and we'll discuss what's in my ultimate watercolor or art texture kit that I use for making the various textures. Now, if you recall, in one of my last videos, I shared with you guys the book on textured landscapes by Claudia Nice. She is one of my favorite artists who uses textures in her paintings and achieves all sorts of gorgeous textures used in a variety of different materials. And so to get started, I'm going to pull a couple of items. we're going to start with some common watercolor items that I'm sure most of you artists use for your watercolor textures. Let me stand these bottles up so that they don't spill. I just had them sitting at a slant like that or laying flat on the surface so you guys could see what they were. And let's start off with some of the familiar items that you would use for making textures. Of course, you can see I've got my cold pressed watercolor paper that has a lot of texture on it. Cold pressed watercolor sketchbooks have papers and rough watercolor papers will make a difference on your textures. But some of these other items, like your watercolor paints, your granulating watercolor paints, will make a variety of textures on your projects that you're looking for. Any of your ultramarine blues and Payne's grays will do that. I'm going to set that to the side. Let's see if I've got some painting examples in here of where I have used a granulating paint for a texture. Right here, I've used like my Payne's gray, and you can also see that the texture of the paint, of the actual paper in my Etcher sketchbook has a little bit of texture. Now, watercolor paper that is rough also is used for a lot of extra textures on your painting. One of the sketchbooks that I really like to use is this Strathmore paper, cold press paper, and you can see the texture on it really well in some of my paintings here. So, how do I use some of these common items? Well, one of the common items that I use, that a lot of folks use, is my masking fluid. And to apply my masking fluid, I sometimes use this brush that I have labeled for masking fluid only, so that it doesn't get damaged. I've used this brush, this coarse hair brush, for applying masking fluid. I use my, you guys have seen me use my embossing tool to apply masking fluid. And then my detailed brush or pen. You put the masking fluid in here, or you can put watercolor in here and use it to get a really fine tip. I've learned this trick from Rachel Varner, who has a YouTube channel. You can pretty much apply masking fluid with any kind of tip or nib. And I have this Molotow masking fluid pump marker pen that I have not even tried out yet. that you can use for applying masking fluid and keeping your textures. To get the white of your paper, I think some of that is in this one here. Yes, like the dots, some of the white dots on there. Some of the white on the background of these windows. And the white in here. A lot of that was done. The streaky parts were done with masking out your white textures along with the spider webs here. So you also can use, I don't know if you've watched Paul Clark's videos. Paul Clark likes to use a scalpel tool or an X-Acto knife with the blade to scratch out the white areas of your paintings. You can use those for your textures. You could use sticks to scrape out your white textures on your paintings. And areas. Like on this one, I used some of the white to scratch out some textures on our where did I put it? I've got a bunch of paintings sitting here that I'm scrolling through. Yeah. This one here I used to scratch through on some. To get the white, you also can use bleed-proof white on top of it on various paintings. Like this one. You paint the white on the waves. You can splatter the snowflakes on your painting for texture. You can splatter some white on some of the tree barks to make your paintings. Toothbrush makes a nice splattering texture. And of course your white Uniball Signo pen will make white textures on there. Or you could use a cotton ball or a makeup pad to rub out textures. Or take some tissue and ball it up. Tissue, toilet paper, or kitchen towel. Kitchen towel works wonderful wadded up. And for lifting, you can also use for your texture this Mr. Clean eraser, magic eraser. For scraping rock textures on your paintings. Let me see if I can find my rock paintings. For doing your rocks and bark, you can use colored pencils. You can use a thin tipped brush or a stick or twig with ink. You could use regular pencil or even fountain ink to draw in your textures on your bark. I've used this fountain pen. You guys have seen me use just recently these brass Tibetan nibs for textures. Let me see if I can find that card where we did those tree textures, where we did the tree textures. You can use that for making textures. And I've got all these different size nibs here. And then for your fine line textures, for like birds and whiskers on animals and feather textures, or these nice thin grasses where you make your leaf textures and your feather textures. For those fine little lines, I sometimes use this for making textures by putting watercolor in here, like I said earlier. A fan brush. This is a Bob Ross fan blending brush, and it's a little bit coarser because it's for oil painting. I like using that one for making the grass textures and layering my grass textures. I either use this the fan blender, or I will use, I got these taped down, or this Princeton Filbert Grainier. If you look, you can see the little fine grains of the bristles, how fine those are. Those make wonderful textures, grass textures, when you brush them up and layer your colors. You start with like an ultramarine and green gold mix and layer it, or ultramarine and the green gold with the primary yellow. You put the primary yellow down first, then your ultramarine and green gold. Same thing with your primary yellow and ultramarine green gold this way. You can get a whole bunch of different wonderful textures with these two brushes. Then you have for salt textures, I use the rock salt, the bigger, heavier grain. Now you can use a smaller, finer grain salt for textures. And for those textures to come out right, let me see if I can find my winter scenes where I've used those. Where are those textures at? Ah, right here with the seal, and right here with this one that I did for Michelle Weber's class. I think I have one other one that I've used the textures on. Let me double check. But those are the salt textures, and you just basically put your watercolor down. You sprinkle your salt on it when it's slightly damp, and it will give you a variety of textures. It will either give you these nice little wavy textures, or sometimes if it's too dry, it'll just give you the spots where the salt will sit just, but you can tell the salt is on that because it's got like a little glitter shine to it. I use the ink, like I've said, for adding textures. You can add the textures of your various buildings. Here's another painting with the splattering textures with the various brushes and the white, or leaving the white of your paper. For rock textures, like in these two paintings, the rock textures here and the rock textures on this one. My favorite tools to use are this little, a little piece of a credit card to scrape. Let me show you. To put your paint down and then scrape in your textures. I know Paul Clark uses that technique. You could use your X-Acto knife. This is another wonderful tool that I use for doing those kinds of textures. And this is an old handle off of one of those sponge applicators. I took the old sponge off of it, but then it has this little plastic card thing on here. So it makes this makes for an easier way for me to achieve that same texture without having to use the smaller card or the strip of card. And then also you could use a dropper to drop bits of watercolor on your paper for textured designs and splattering designs. Let's see where I used that one at. I usually use that one for dropping water spots on my textures. When I want to make back runs sometimes in my paintings. Well, let me see where that is. Ah, yeah. When you want to drop water down or spots of water on your paintings, like this one. This one has the salt technique in it because you can see the shiny salt. But then I also did a little bit, the lines in here I did with the masking fluid. And then, of course, you've got your tree textures. Let's see if I've got my leafy tree textures in here. Or my watery backgrounds. Ah, no, I don't have that one pulled. Now, for the texture on the back of this one, you can either draw with your pencil or you can use vegetable bag mesh to put it down and then paint on it. Or this is a thinner mesh from your potatoes. You could use bubble wrap. Bubble wrap makes a wonderful texture. You put your watercolor on your paper and then lay it down on it and let it dry. That would make a great texture. And even scrunched up aluminum foil will make a great texture. I've got all sorts of different bags that I've saved for making fine lines. Let's see. The straw. I do use the straw. I've got one right here to make textures. This one here is full of little bits and bobs that I use. A metal stick for scratching out textures. Stay up there. Cotton buds. Toothpicks. Those are great for using. Here's a little plastic applicator from something, a pull tab that I've saved that you can use to scrape. For bokeh effects, I use this little circle. You put it down on your paper. Let's see what else. Oh, my thin eraser. I use that sometimes on pencil drawings, graphite drawings, for lifting white textures. And then for my foliage, for my trees, and I don't know what happened to that painting. Yeah. For tree foliage, like on these two, I will use a variety of sponges. I have got this really soft sponge that came with one of my, I think it was my Sakura Koi palette. It's a soft kitchen sponge. But I also have this wiry looking sponge that came from an aquarium, an old aquarium. I took and cut some of that. This one works really well for dipping into your paint and getting these textures like this right here, or the textures right here where we've spotted down some spots. So there's really just all sorts of items that you can use for creating a variety of textures in your watercolor paintings and multimedia paintings, and that to achieve. I think, yeah. The foliage here I did with the sponge, and one of these other paintings in here. Here. This one here, I used the sponge to tap in some color. So when you're trying to put textures into your watercolor or multimedia paintings, don't be afraid to just try some different and unusual items. This item here even, I took an old mascara brush and washed it with Dawn dishwashing soap. This one makes some wonderful grass textures. Just dip it into your paint sideways, and then you can just bring it up. It's also great for applying masking fluid. So don't be afraid to try a bunch of different items and just play and explore with what you can achieve or do with making textures in your art. See what works best for you. Not all of these will work for you. Might not be something that you want to do or use. But I have found that a variety of different objects will help me achieve what I'm wanting to do for a variety of textures in landscapes, in floral painting, in painting animals or portraits, and make a variety of wonderfully fun textures in a variety of my paintings. I hope this video today has helped give you some ideas of what to look for and what to use for your textured toolkit and achieving a variety of wonderful textures for a variety of your different paintings. If you have any questions or comments, put those down below. I do read each and every comment. And let me know if some of these tools were new to you. And don't forget to click that thumbs up, like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you guys again next time, boardwalkers. Goodbye for now.